Hi guys, it's Becky, and I wanted to make some earrings today using the Gustav Klimt Magical Mystery Bead Box from Jesse James Beads. So I have some examples that I've already made up. We'll make the second earring for each of these pairs together, and we'll go ahead and show you how to do those. Some of these are going to be fairly simple, where we just do a little wire wrapped link and then connect everything together. Some of them will be a little more complicated, where we do some wire wrapping, and a couple of them are going to be using a technique that I actually have done a video for this before. It's twisted wire hoops, and so I'll walk you through that for both of these. And the reason I decided to do these is because we got this wire in our Magical Mystery Bead Box, and I thought that would be a great time for us to do some twisted wire hoops. So I've got all these, they're ready to go. I'm going to be using these wire hoops, some of these red rondelles, some of these rainbow AB finish rice beads, and some of these wavy spacers. They're like hammer tone kind of bead spacers. For that one, I'm going to be using the bead woven links that came in here, these really pretty mauve roses, and the taupe tassels for another one. We'll get to those in a little bit. And for this, we're just going to make a really quick link using these gold or yellow and green splatter beads. And because this is such a statement already, I didn't want it to complicate it. I just wanted to add a little something extra to draw it together. You could just put a hoop right on this. It is really heavy, so you're not going to want to add a lot of extra beads to that one. All right, and then for our hoops, I'll show you how to make the twisted wire. And for these, you're going to want a bead that you can put the ends of your wire hoop into and glue. So I grabbed the gray, the small gray square faceted beads from the bead box, and I like to have a little dangle on my hoop too. And so I made a dangle with the pear faceted beads, these gray ones, and I used the wire that came in the box to make a spiral head pin. And I did that actually for both of these. And for the gold one, I added a little extra dangle with one of these guys here. We use the laser etch bead for our gluing, and these long faceted drops for my dangle. So that's the beads that we're using. We'll get to that in a minute, but I'll show you how to do the spiral. I'll show you how to twist the wire, and I will show you how to put that all together in order to make the thing once we've got our things. For gluing these together, you can use E6000. I'm going to use some Loctite. I have some scrap wire or scrap paper that I'm going to be sticking underneath my work to protect it while I'm working on it. And this is my secret weapon when I'm using the glue, because you have to hold it while it cures. The tape's going to do that for me. So I'll show you how to do that when we get to it. Set this aside for now, and I will show you how to twist this wire. Now, I just cut a couple of small pieces of wire, because if you were around and saw my first twisted wire hoop video, it was incredibly awkward because I had these really, really long pieces of wire and I was trying to twist them, and I kept hitting the camera with it and having to move away and moving off camera. And we're going to just avoid that altogether for this. It's going to be a much better video. And that's another one of the reasons why I wanted to make this, was because I was like, you know what, I can do this better than I did before. That was one of my earliest videos. I'll link it in the description if you want to watch one of my earlier videos and you haven't seen it yet. But basically, for each of these, the actual earrings, I cut off between 20 and 24 inches each of one of the colors. and then I twisted them up together. I've got some silver here that I'm going to be showing you how to make the hoop with. So we'll do that. I've already made the hoop for my black one, so we're not going to be doing that twice. But I'm starting with some shorter wire here just to show you how to do the twisting, because I can show you without it hitting things. That's why we're doing it this way. All right, so you're going to take your wire, and near one of the ends, you're going to kind of cross them over right there and just give them a little twist. Just a beginning twist around each other. This twist does not need to look pretty. It does not need to really work that well. It's just to hold it together while you do the rest of the twisting. And when it's at the very beginning here, I will absolutely take my pliers and hold it. And you're going to want to make sure that your wires are going a really wide Y shape, like they're doing the splits or something, or they're trying to. And then you're just going to pinch them and twist them around each other. Be careful, because the black wire is a little bit softer than the silver wire, and because of that, if you don't have them both at the same angle when you're twisting, the black wire will barber pole around the silver wire. Just going to scooch in a little closer so you can see this. So you're just pinching on both sides and giving it a twist. Now I'm going to mention that, like, see the black stuff that's coming off on my fingers while I'm working with this? I would not recommend using this wire for ear wires. I would use a higher quality wire, but it is not a bad wire to use for decorative purposes, for wire wrapping onto something. It's just not something that you're going to want inside of your ear. You know, it's fine for this. And it is a dead soft wire, so if you're used to using like half hard wire, this is going to be easier to manipulate, but it's also going to be easier to manipulate. So you may overbend it, do something like that. So just, you know, go slow and have fun while you're doing it. All right, so that just gives you an idea, a little bit of how this will look when you have it done. And this is, again, the longer section that I made earlier, when I could do it without hitting things on my desk. With all of that. So for your sizes, when you're forming your hoop, you can pick something that you can shape it around. This is what I used to shape my larger hoop with. And you can see it is a lot larger than the shape that I shaped it around, because when you wrap it around here, it will spring back. So keep that in mind when you're choosing a size. This is the one that I wrapped around this. And see, it's much bigger than that, because after it was done wrapping, it sprang back. It's actually closer to this size, not quite as big, but closer to that size. So it's something to keep in mind when you're looking around your desk and looking for something round to shape your hoop around. It will end up a little bit bigger. And that's just the nature of how these things get shaped. I'm going to go ahead, in order for this to be consistent from one earring to another, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this wire around the same form that I used. And I would recommend just wrapping both hoops at the same time. Just go around. You'll want to go around at least, like this. This would be good for one hoop. You want to make sure you've got plenty of crossover for that shape. If I was going to do 2 hoops at once, I'd keep going. And again, make sure that I have plenty of crossover. So it's like 2.5 times around. Give it a good press with your thumbs, and see, it springs back, but then you can plop that right next to the other one here. Give it a cut with your flush cutters. Did I mention tools? I may have mentioned tools in my previous video and not in this one. This is the second time I'm filming this. I don't know if I actually mentioned that or not. I might have just mentioned it in my head. There was a weird buzzing noise. I didn't want to publish that, so I deleted that video and undid all of my earrings so that we could start over again. That's why some of them are done and some of them are not. And I actually, this glue works well enough that I'm actually going to have to toss the bead that I made the first one with because I cannot get it off that wire. It's really good glue. In other words. All right, so now I have my hoop, and this is going to be pretty easy to put together. Before I put it together, though, I'm going to want to make my head pin and my drop because I'm going to be putting all of this together all at once before I glue it. So let me grab my little guy here, and let's make a spiral head pin. I'm going to grab my silver wire because that's what color I'm working with, and I'm going to leave it on the spool for now while I'm working with it. And see how it's got some kinks in it? You can help work out the kinks by kind of bending your wire on your thumb and then go through on the other side and bend the wire with your finger in the other direction. And it really helps smooth it out, gets those kinks out, and it warms up the wire so it's easier to work with. All right, so I've got a decent amount of wire here. And this end is cut flush. If it wasn't cut flush already, you can use your flush cutters to give it a snip. I'm going to scooch in just a little bit because I don't want that stuff to be all distracting for the camera. So you can give it a little snip. It'll make it flush. And then you can take your round nose pliers. We're using round nose pliers and chain nose pliers for our wire working. They're your basic anytime you work with wire. These two tools plus the flush cutter and you're good to go. You can make just about anything. So I'm going to pinch it right here at the very end of my wire, give it a twist, and then carefully keep twisting around like this. Again, this is very soft wire. I'm going to keep twisting until it gets to the point where if I kept twisting there, it would smush that wire with the one next to it, and I don't really want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to my other pliers. Instead of round nose, I'm going to use my chain nose pliers. I'm going to hold my spiral like that and just kind of push gently with my thumb in a circle. And spirals are easy if you go slow and take your time. All right, now I've got 3 on this side, 1, 2, 3, and I've got 1, 2, 3 on that side. And when this comes to about the same point that starts in, you know, the radius of the circle, right there, I'm going to stop. Going to take my pliers and I'm going to just grasp the wire here, bend this up that way into a little bit of a lollipop. And that gives me my head pin as soon as I cut it free from my spool. So I can treat this just like I would any other head pin and make a drop with my earring with it, for my earring with it, with my bead. I'm going to plop that on there with my fat bottom down. You know how I feel about fat bottom beads? They make the beading world go round. And I'm going to do a wire wrapped loop on this. This is, again, very dead soft wire. I wouldn't trust a, what is it called? It's like 22 gauge and it's very soft, so I would not trust a simple loop with this to hold for any duration. So most of my loops are going to be closed wrapped loops. So I'm just pinching this right here with this up against here so that I've got some space for wrapping. And I bent it back in that direction because when it's hanging from the hoop, like this, I want to be able to see my spiral. And you can always twist your loops later. You don't have to start out this way, but I like to, you know, start how I mean to go on. Set myself up for success. I'm going to pinch the top of this bend with my round nose pliers, about the spot on the barrel where you want your loop to be that size. I'm just going to pull that forward. I'm going to rotate my round nose pliers around and bring this around the other side. And because I'm going to be putting this through here after I've made this, I don't have to worry about hooking it onto anything before I wrap it. So I'm just going to go ahead and do my wrapping all the way around. 1, 2, 3. Again, very soft wire, very easy to wrap with. Once that's done, take my pliers and tuck in my end after I cut off my excess. So that makes my drop. And I did the exact same thing with my gold earring. I did one of these. So we're not going to have to do that twice. It's going to be ready for us to go. So let's get all of our bits together to assemble our hoop. And I'm going to, at this point, get my scrap paper out here because I do not want to be gluing on my bead mat. So to assemble this, I've got my glue, I've got my hoop, I've got my bead that's going to be holding the ends of this wire together. That's how we make the hoop solid. And I've got my tape. I'm going to go ahead and just pull off a length of tape that's about twice the width of my hoop. I'm just going to attach it to my bead board so that I can pull it off when I'm ready for it and not have to mess around with holding things and tearing off tape at the same time. And I think that I'm actually using my expensive painting watercolor tape instead of my inexpensive masking tape for that. But that's okay, because you know what? That's okay. I was distracted and I grabbed the wrong thing of tape. That's fine, because this will still work. It also won't tear your paper when you go to remove it. But we don't have any paper, we just have wire and beads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little dollop of glue on each end of this wire, and then I'm going to spoop those ends. Spoop is an official word. I'm just going to ploop those into the bead. And then you'll want to hold it while it is curing, except it takes a little while to cure, so you'll be holding it for a while, and that's why I grabbed my, oh, this is going to be a lot easier and cleaner for me if I just use that. There we go, in both sides. That is why I grabbed my tape. So you can just hold it like that, or you can grab your tape and, whoop, don't be shaky bakey. Gonna pull the tape on that side. And then over here on that side, fold it over, and that's gonna hold that together. Well, I forgot. You know what? Hold on. Because I can fix this. I can fix this. Take the tape off. See how that pops out? That's why you need to hold it. I forgot this step. Okay. Let's slide this on without getting glue on it. Put that guy back in the hole where he belongs. And tape that again. Okay. Whew. See what happens when you're talking? So that's how you do this one. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my second hoop and glue it at the same time. With my large bead, this guy with the spiral, and I made this drop exactly the same way. I made this exactly the same way. I just used a smaller form to go around it. But I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to grab this other tape for this before I do. But see, that way you can set it down, you can let it dry, and then when you come back, it is finished and it will hold forever and ever and ever. All right, so this is how you do it the right way. You slide this guy on first, and then you glue your ends, and then you pop it onto your beads. So let me grab my Loctites. So we're gonna get these glued, and we're gonna move them out of the way, and then we're gonna work on our other earrings. But I want to show you before the special thing I did with the black and gold ones that make them a little bit different from the first ones. Hold on, my fingers keep getting in the way, so I'm just going to grab this with my pliers so I can hold it properly. Goes in through that hole, that goes in through that hole. All the way in. These, and this one I don't have to hold as much because it's smaller and because the tension from the curvature of the wire is kind of holding it in the bead, but I am going to tape it anyway, just to be sure that it doesn't pop open later. And I'm just taping gently because I would like to be able to remove this tape when I'm done. So those two are going to get set aside. We're going to let them cure. Over there. And then when you're done, you can just pop an ear wire on, and you have a nice dangly wire wrapped hoop earring with a little jangle on it. And for this one, let me take it apart real quick so that you can see what I did a little bit different on this one. I just added a little extra dangle in the middle. Before I put my ear wire on, I took one of these gold drops and I slid it along the back of my ear wire because my ear wires have this loop at the front, and that just makes it easier for it to stay on. But sliding it along the back makes it so that it goes on a lot easier. And then once I've got that on that part, slide that open a little bit so I can fit that in there. Move that closed. Now I've got a little dangle in the middle of my hoop and a little dangle at the bottom of my hoop. And I kind of really like that for my black and gold ones. So when I go to put together my other one, I'm going to already have this on my ear wire. And so I can just slide it right onto my hoop and I am ready to go. All right, so that is the first two. That was the most complicated ones that we did there. So let's grab some wire and let's make an easy pair. So this easy pair, we're going to go ahead and use one of these focals. It is glass cabochon on a setting with some sparkles, and underneath that cabochon is the painting of The Kiss. It is one of the most well-known paintings that Gustav Klimt ever painted. It's apparently supposed to be a picture of him with his lover. I forgot her name, but she was a fashion designer. So I'm just, like I did with the other one, working the kinks out by bending it around my thumb and then bending it the other way around my finger, but also warming it up a little bit so that I can make a wire wrapped loop. It's basically just going to be a link. So I'm going to slide my bead on first because I like to work off the spool for this. About 2.5 inches down from the top. I'm going to give it a little bend so that when we make our loop, it will be centered around the center of this. Grab my round nose pliers, pull this up and around the front like this. And this is going to be the top. It's going to be attached to the ear wire, so I don't have to attach it to my dangle first. I can go ahead and close that loop and wrap it like that. And then cut off the excess. Slide this guy up here. And this is why I like to do it off the spools, because then I can just measure about 3 fingers down from the bottom of my bead. So I'm going to cut that off so that I can make my second loop. And then here we are with our second loop. And I'm going to want my loops to be perpendicular to each other. So if I can see this one, it's like, if it looks open around to me, then I'm going to go ahead and grasp that right above there and bend back away from me so that when I make this loop, it will be going the other direction. Again, I like to set myself up for success. You can twist these afterwards. There's nothing stopping you. There's no police out there. There's no wire working police. Nobody's going to arrest you for doing it a different way. I promise you. Like, geez. Could you imagine? Put down the pliers and step away from the beadboard. Right? So I've made my loop the same way that I did the other one, but because I'm going to be attaching a charm to this, and it's a big charm, I'm going to go ahead and wait to wrap it until I've done that. Now, I don't always do this, actually. I very often have to start over and cut my thing because I forgot to do that. Or sometimes I'll just use a jump ring instead because I forgot to do the thing. I often get talking and I get distracted. And it's just something that I do. I can sometimes be very distracted while I'm working. So I swung that open like it was a jump ring, and then I put on my charm, and then I closed it. And I'm going to hold it closed still while I take my other end, and I'm going to wrap it down around the stem of my wire down towards my bead. And when it's done with that, cut off my excess. Oof, and I've got a little pokey out bit there. I'm going to use my chain nose pliers. I'm going to try not to let this painting charm drag that around too much while I do that. But I just want to tuck in my pokey end. All right, so now I've got my guy. I can pop it on my ear wire. And I've got a very sunny, beautiful pair of earrings that we can wear. Now the second, or sorry, 1, 2, 3, that was third. So this is the fourth pair of earrings that I'm gonna make. A lot of the work for this is already done. It's all done with this beaded link that came in the box. I think that that is beautiful. They were a fantastic component to have with this, but I am going to do another wire wrapped link, and I'm going to put this rose bead on here. And because this rose bead is not like double-sided, I'm going to want it to face a certain way when it's on the ear. And so when I wrap it, I'm going to be wrapping the top of it at an angle to help direct that bead the way that it needs to go. So I'll show you how I do that in just a minute when we get this on here. So the first thing I'm going to do with this is I'm going to attach my tassel to my rose bead with a wire wrapped loop. So let's pull this guy off. Oh, the other end. get some more of this wire. And oh, actually I already have some pulled off. I forgot about that. I already have a length of wire that I was going to be working with for this, and I want to have it be kind of a longer length of wire because I'm going to be doing so much wrapping on the top side of this. I want to be able to have that freedom of movement for that. So still about 2.5 inches from the end, I'm going to make my first wrapped loop. This is the loop that is going to attach to my tassel. So before I wrap it, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure it gets attached. All right, so that makes my loop. And I'm just going to open this a little bit like that so that I can slide this on here and it will go on easy. Close up that loop. And I'm all just using the wire that came in this box. If you've got other wire that you would rather use, go ahead. All right, so we've got a few wraps there. You don't need many, I just did about 3. That's about what I usually do when I do my wrapped loops. All right, and that is ready for me to put my rose on. Okay. Now, this is going to be the fun part. I'm going to choose right now which direction I want this to be on here. It doesn't matter, it can be facing the other direction. But I'm going to pinch this right here next to my rose. And it's going to be a little awkward, I promise. Like, it will be awkward. So now I've got this, and you see how it kind of rotates around on the wire? That's why we're going to be wrapping down close to it and at an angle when we get to it. But before we do that, we need to attach it to our connector. So I'm going to do the same thing, make a little loop with my wire all the way around my pliers. This is already open a little bit, so I don't have to swing it open. And right here at the end of the connector, there's a little bridge with some seed beads. That's the connection point. That's what we're going to be connecting both our ear wire to at the top and this wire to here at the bottom. So I'm going to slide this on here along the bottom. It's just seed beads and thread holding that together. All right, and now that I've got that, I am going to definitely want to start wrapping. So I'm going to close that first, make sure that's nice and snug. I'm going to hold on to this and see how my rose is already kind of rotating back around the other direction. I'm going to start wrapping down towards it. And actually, maybe that is the direction that, if it likes being in that direction, then let's keep it in that direction. See, I'm moving towards my pliers here and then away from my pliers to go down around it at the angle. And I just want to do this maybe one more time to help solidify that that is the direction that that rose is in, all the way down there. And there, that wraps it at an angle, that keeps it facing forward. Because I can choose forward. This bead component is the same on both sides. This tassel is the same on both sides. So I can choose which way I want to be forward and which way I don't. But once it's locked in place, it's locked in place. And that rose will help me determine which way the earring is facing forward. So I'm just going to tuck my little end in here. Make sure we're good. Well, come on, buddy. Why are you twisted? Oof, did I do this wrong? Oh, you know what? I bet it's the loop. There we go. See, I can adjust the loop if I need to. There we go. But also this thread is a little loose here. I hope this doesn't come apart on me. And this is also going to be tricky because I've got this big bump up here. But if I go through the back side, tricky, tricky. I'm just showing you all my tricks today. And now I've got these two dangly guys. These are super boho. Like, you could wear these to a festival. Not a problem. All right, now, last one. Whoop, is going to be the one with this hammered ring. And honestly, because I did have to redo this, my first take when I did this is I just used this ring with this, and I just kind of had them dangling in front of it. And while I sort of liked it, I didn't like it. So I decided I'm just going to do something totally different with these hammered ring for my second tape. And it should be a little bit better, a little bit funner. And I know the look of this is, it's a little bit Christmas because of the green tones that we have in the Rainbow AB rice beads. But these were the only beads, these red beads and these rainbow rice beads, that I had at least 12 of in the box. Because, well, one of the big strengths of Jesse James beads is that they give you a ton of different beads. One of the drawbacks is that they give you a ton of different beads. So if you need like multiple beads for something like this, there's not a ton usually. And you've got to make exceptions or make changes for that sort of thing. So I grabbed the only two beads that I had 6 of, and these because that will echo the hammer tone in the rings. They're different finishes. One is shiny and one is matte, but I think they go really well together. So one of the symbols that Gustav Klimt uses a lot is spirals, which is why I used them for this. Another one is circles, one is flowers, but he also uses triangles. So I made a little triangle with our beads within this circle. And that's what we're going to do with this guy too. So you want enough wire to go 1, 2, 3 times around. So if I just do 1, 2, 3 when I'm pulling it off here, that should be enough. And again, we've got all these wavy bits and kinks. So I'm going to do the same trick I did before to get it unkinked by curling it along my thumb and then curling it the other way along my forefinger. And again, this is, you see all those black marks? Do not use this for ear wires. Just don't. You've got para wire, which would be better. You've got soft flex wire, which is better. You've got bead-along wire, which is better. You've got the Beadsmith, the wire elements, which is better, and won't leave black marks inside your ears. But this is great for decorative purposes and for doing some wire working on these. It's just not, definitely don't use it for ear wires though. Use a higher quality wire for that. All right, so I am going to take the end of one of these pretty close. I've got about an 1.5 inches here sticking out of the other end. I'm holding it with my thumb sort of along the top here. I am not going to tighten this until after I get all my beads on here because I want to be able to adjust it. But I am going to wrap this around twice so that I've got a little anchor point. I'm not going to snip off my excess again until I've got all my beads on here. But I'm going to go across here, and because of the amount of beads in the shape, I'm probably going to be bending it a little bit so it'll be bendy and fit within here. But we will do that after we get our beads on. I'm going to take the other end of my wire and I'm going to string on one of these rice beads, one of these rondelles, one of these hammered spacers, a rondelle, and a rice bead. There we go. And we'll give it a little bit of a curve so that it fits right there at the top. So I've got my hole right here, and that's going to tell me where my top is. And I'm pinching the beads together with the hoop while I move my wire around on the other side. I'm bending it loosely so that the end will fit in here, because I'd like to do this without adding more bends and kinks to the wire. The more bends and kinks that you add to your wire, the weaker it becomes. All right, and I'm just doing 2 wraps. Straighten that out a little bit more. And I will do the next little bit here. And again, rice bead, rondelle, hammered spacer, rondelle, and rice bead. Boop, just like that. And I want to attach it sort of where I've got the hole on this side, just right there, sort of along the middle. This is why I didn't tighten it before. Going to pinch it here, because that's the middle on the other side. I'm going to do the same thing where I wrap around a couple of times. Once, twice, 3 times a lady. All right. Wrap 3 times on the ceiling. Sorry, we're just mashing up our songs here. All right, and then I'm going to have my 3rd leg of my triangle. This is, again, another reason why I did not tighten this until after. And it's going to go up that way. We need to get our beads on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you can adjust it. You can kind of push these into place. Push them carefully because they are glass beads and you don't want to break them. But once that is in its place where I want it to be, I'm going to scoop that right in there between these beads and around there. Whoop, don't kink. So that I can wrap it around 1 time and then 1 more. All right. Now I can cut off. Now I can cut this off on the back. And then I can use my chain nose pliers to kind of adjust this as much as I need to beforehand. And then I can use my chain nose pliers to give this a very gentle smush right here to help lock these into place. Very gentle smush, very gentle smush, very gentle smush. There we go. And that makes a very glittery pair of circle, triangle earrings. And again with this, because these are the ear wires that I like to make, it helps things to not slide off of it if I've got this bump. But it also makes it a little bit tricky when I've got things that I'm attaching that have a very small hole. So for this, again, we're just going to go in the back. And I need to open this, slide that open, and then slide it closed. And there we have our earrings. So these are some earrings that we made with the Jesse James Beads Magical Mystery Bead Box, the Gustav Klimt box. This was our December box. I believe most of us have our January boxes on the way. They went ahead and shipped them a little early, it looks like, this month. So we should be getting those pretty soon, and I hope that they are as much fun as this one. You guys know my Thanksgiving box I wasn't very jazzed about, but I was super pleased that they are back true to form with the boxes that I have now. And I just have the one of each of these because we have the glue drying for our twisted wire hoops. I will put a link to that other video, by the way, if you want to see one of my very first videos. And if you are familiar with that video at all and you've seen it, let me know if this one was any better, any clearer to follow with the twisted wire hoops, and if some of my tips for making them, if any of those work better for you if you decide to do that. Especially I'm really happy I came up with the whole taping your stuff together thing. So it makes it so you can work on other things while that stuff is drying. So I will take a picture of these when they're all together later. I hope you guys are having a fabulous weekend, and if you like what you see, hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye!